Hello, everyone. My name is June Brown, and I'm from Toronto, Ontario. I would like to offer Alberta Tales my sincere congratulations on 40 years of excellent storytelling. Many of your storytellers have inspired me, and your stories have sent my imagination soaring, and the workshops I have taken have improved my storytelling. The story I am going to tell today is a personal story about something that changed my attitude. I call this story The Coat, and I hope you enjoy it. I stood in front of my mother's condo door, staring at the brass numbers 10:03. I'd driven 3.5 hours to get here, and I had the key in my hand, but I couldn't make myself open the door. I was reluctant because I knew this was going to be one of the last times I ever entered this space. And the task I was going to do was going to be difficult. I was getting the condo ready to sell and disposing of all my mother's worldly goods. For years, as my mother's health declined, I tried to get her to consider what she wanted to do with her things. Did she have anything special she wanted to give to somebody? And maybe it was time to downsize and go into a retirement home where she could still make friends. But my mother would have none of it. "I'm 99 years old," she shouted at me. "I've lived in this condo 30 years, and I'm going to have my 100th birthday party in the party room downstairs. And I'm going to die in my bed here. And you can't stop me. If you try, I will call my lawyers." I was in my 70s, but my mother was still the most powerful force in my life. And under her anger, I always crumbled. And so I did not push the issue. But you know, in life, we don't always get what we want. My mother did celebrate her 100th birthday, but she was in a nursing home, suffering from dementia. She could neither speak nor walk, and I wasn't sure she even knew I was there. When I finally let myself into the condo, it was eerily silent, and there was a stale smell in the air. There was no big band music playing in the living room. "Pardon me, boys, is that the Chattanooga choo-choo? Track 29, come on and give me a shine." There was no Judge Judy on in the TV room, way too loud. And there was no greeting coming down the hall. "Oh, I was so worried about you. What took you so long?" No, I was alone. And I was angry and resentful. Why did it have to be this way, I thought. We could have made some decisions before now. And I had just downsized myself, and I knew how hard it was to decide what to keep, what to give away, what to junk. And now I had to do it with somebody else's things. Grumbling, I pulled the bags and boxes into the living room, thinking it would be the easiest place to start. My eyes went around the room, and then they landed on a keyboard in the corner. My mother didn't read music, but she'd taught herself to play well enough that she could play out at parties. And then I looked on the walls, all covered with her paintings. Again, something she had started late in life, but many of them were good enough to sell. And then my eyes landed on the coffee table where my mother had her most prized possession, a book of her memoirs that she published when she was 96 years old. I did the title, "Still Kicking, just not as high. And I took the picture on the cover too. That's her 99-year-old leg. She sold over 1,000 copies and gave all the money to charity. I could feel my anger slipping away, replaced by a sense of pride. Boy, did my mother have talent and drive. I carried that feeling into her bedroom. But here the resentfulness came back, for I could see one talent my mother didn't have. She could not organize her things. Everything looked like a page out of a fine Waldo book. Good gracious, Mother, I thought, how did you find anything? But I knew the answer. She didn't. Oh, over the years I'd come down so many times and organized her cupboards and her drawers, found her passport or her keys, only to come back 6 weeks later and find it all in a mess again. In her bedside table, I found a tattered wig, a faded bathing cap, a family Bible, batteries for her hearing aid, and a paintbrush. Oh, Mother, I sighed as I moved on to the kitchen. This area was in about the same mess as her other place, but here I had to laugh. What was an old woman in her 90s going to do with 15 cans of cream of mushroom soup, a large economy jar of dill pickles, and enough crackers to serve a cocktail party of 75? They were all stale dated, and I threw them in the garbage, and then moved on to the dining room cabinet. Here I had some surprises. I found objects I hadn't seen since I was a little girl or had never seen. There was the little peanut candy dish with a Mr. Peanut logo. I remember that. But the cameo brooch I found in the sugar jar, I had never seen her wear that brooch. And who had signed this thank you card to her? I knew all her friends, and none of their names met this signature. And the sad thing was, now that my mother's dementia was so advanced, I would never have a story to tell about these objects because she couldn't tell me. It was a long day, and I finally was in the hall cupboard. And behind the ironing board, I found a faded garment bag. I looked at the initials on the outside. The Advance Shop. Oh, I knew this name. It was the classiest dress store in my mother's city, and she always shopped there. I tugged at the broken zipper and finally pulled out a long black winter coat with a mink collar and mink at the hem. I couldn't believe my eyes. It looked brand new, but I knew this coat to be over 50 years old because I was there on the day she bought it. It looked so good, I couldn't resist trying it on. It was a little tight, but as I stroked the black mink collar, memories of my mother in her prime came to me. She was tall, blonde, beautiful, and successful. And then another little memory bubbled up into my consciousness. It was the day my mother bought the coat. She had called me in the morning and said, "June, I'm going to buy a winter coat today. Come along, I want your opinion." Well, in truth, my mother didn't need anybody's opinion, but I went along. I watched my mother as she tried on coat after coat, and as she looked in the mirror, she sent some advice over her shoulder to me. "June," she said, "Canadian winters are long and cold. When you invest in a coat, make sure it's warm and make sure it's stylish. You're going to wear it a long, long time." My mother finally decided on the black coat with the mink collar, and she handed it to the owner, and we all went up to the cash. But there She surprised us. She turned around and walked back to the coat rack, flipping through again. And then she pulled out a completely different coat. It was a beige tweed with a big lynx collar. "Here, June," she said, "try this on. It'll look good with your red hair." I did not want to try on that coat. My husband was starting a new career. I had 2 small children, and we didn't have any money for a new winter coat for me, especially not one from the advance shop. But my mother insisted, and I tried it on. Oh, I had to admit, it did look good. I reluctantly took it off and put it back on the rack, but my mother took it and marched back up to the cache. "Mr. Sherman," she said to the owner, "we will be buying 2 coats today, one for June and one for me." That coat was the most wonderful piece of clothing I had for years and years, and my mother's advice was true. I always felt warm and stylish in that coat. I slipped off her black coat with the mink collar, and I walked it over to a pile of items I had marked very special. Do not throw away. It took many more days for me to finish off that condo. But because of the coat, I was able to do it with love in my heart for a very generous mother. Thank you.